Hey guys, welcome back to Spitball Experts. Nice to be back. Arnold, how's things in South Africa, man?
It is getting cold, which isn't great. The great thing about Zoom and the camera, for those of you that's watching or listening rather, let me just paint you a picture. I've got two blankets over me, and both are pink. It's not my fault, it is my wife. And I've got a little dog on my lap, so it is extremely cold. But other than that, we are currently facing a very interesting third wave pandemic, and we are in a very interesting situation, even with our president's iPad being stolen, which is making more headline news than anything else in the country. So yeah, that is South Africa for you.
Yeah, guys. Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to the channel. It's always fun talking to a guy sitting in Europe, another guy in South Africa.
Yeah.
So I'm Dirk.
So how's it in the on the greener side of the world?
Well, I just quickly want to tell people that I'm Dirk. I live in Switzerland, so I'm in Europe.
Yeah.
My sparring partner, my spitballing partner, yeah, is Arnold. Remember the days where we made pea shooters? I think that's where the name really comes from. Is the days where you just like spitball people. But
Yeah.
anyway, um, yeah. So the greener side of life. Well, we have a nice summer. So it's been raining the last couple of days, but it's been
Yeah.
nice. Been nice.
Nice.
I can hang out in shorts and t-shirts. So it's good. It's good.
Nice.
We are enjoying it while it's lasting. The
Yeah.
winter was hectic, man. Um, for those of you who've traveled to the northern hemisphere, you would know that winters are quite tough sometimes. Now with
Yeah.
COVID, we had quite a tough winter. I tore my ACL, so I couldn't even go ski or something like that, but which makes it
Oh,
a little bit better. But yeah,
yeah.
that's life, I guess. It's unfortunate, one of those things.
Yeah.
So yeah, hey Arnold, what's happening in the world of South Africa? Just to quickly catch up, you guys are in a third wave. I still don't know
We
how president's iPad gets stolen. Like that's a little
You
bit
know,
crazy.
that is just crazy. We're getting more views and more Twitter trends on our president's iPad being stolen, which in fact wasn't stolen. He was just waiting for his assistant to bring it to him. So he thought he'd pass the time by saying, "Oh, so someone stole it," and then that just started trending. But yeah, we are in a third wave, and it's getting hectic. Hey, I mean, a lot of my friends and close people around me were positive or are positive now.
Every second person in South Africa is positive. My parents also had to
Exactly.
go for a COVID test, so see what
You
happens there.
see, so, and I mean, even with now the vaccines are being opened up, it was open up to teachers and stuff this week. There were so many left over from the 60-year-old age gap that didn't want it. So they were able to do the teachers. Now they're doing the police officers and the 50 to the 59-year-olds, which just opens up again another long wait for vaccines and all of that. So yeah, we are in a very interesting spot. Gauteng, I want to say the province in which I live in Joburg, in Johannesburg, is getting affected quite a lot. We are currently number one with the most COVID cases in South Africa. We are achieving something. However, people are still living like there's no COVID, which makes it very bad. So yeah, we are in a very, very interesting spot right now. But we still have hope. Jesus is still alive, so we still have hope.
Yeah, I like that. Sounds very fascinating.
Yeah,
You guys are going into stricter lockdowns,
lockdown
or no, not lockdowns, but stricter rules,
measures.
measures. There we go. And we are going in
You're
not
kind of
so.
coming out of it.
We're kind of coming out of it, so it's
Yeah,
interesting. But I think this is a great place to start our conversation today.
yeah,
Is about reflecting as a Christian. I think it's always interesting to see for me how Christians reflect about not just their lives but also about whether it's political situations, or just scripture, or just
mm,
plain their psychological problems. I don't
Yeah.
know. But being reflective as a Christian is something that I think is so important, not just for how we deal with the world, but also how effective we are in the world.
Yeah.
So I've been now. Yeah, so I looked at South African newspapers, because I find it's always interesting to see what's happening in another country, and also in our country. I mean, people went bonkers
Yeah.
as soon as this whole lockdown thing came up, and COVID is trending, and people feel like their rights are being infringed on. And so we had a couple of protests. So Switzerland has a different a different type of democracy than the rest of the world.
Yeah.
It's a direct democracy. So you, as a normal person, you have a lot of say in politics.
Oh, okay.
So it makes it really complex to a certain
Yeah.
extent. But
Yeah, that wouldn't work in South Africa
yeah, I don't think direct democracy is something for
because yeah,
everybody.
everyone has an opinion and every opinion is right.
Yeah, I mean that's the problem, and this is exactly where we're heading, right? Is
Yeah.
like looking at how our government did stuff here in Switzerland was quite interesting. I mean, they can only do it wrong. I mean, there's it's just one
Yeah.
of those things, right? Um, but what I saw is that people's opinions are not reflected. Um, Either you have the mainstream opinion, which you read in the newspaper, or
Yeah.
you have some weird conspiracy theory, or you have no opinion at all. And
Yeah.
I mean, how do we engage as Christians in a world, in a society, without having opinions that sharp, like that are really calculating in many factors? I don't know
Mm.
how is that in South Africa? How do you guys deal with it? How do you, as a Christian I want to say in a third world developing country, I think that is a better word for it. In a
Yeah.
developing country, how do you guys deal with this type of thing of really getting your opinion based not just on facts but also on the general consensus of both sides of the spectrum, of both ends of the
Yeah.
story, if you will?
So in South Africa, and this might sound very negative right now, but in South Africa, we've got a very interesting development within that. So we've got the side where the government says, we want your opinion, we value your opinion, we want you to participate, and we want you to partake and voice your concerns. But the moment that happens, unfortunately, with some of the parties within South Africa, we then always the racist card gets dropped because then it's always a privilege thing. No, it doesn't matter which way it goes, whether it's white to black or black to white, it doesn't matter. And for some reason, I've just seen throughout the years that the moment that we try to interject an opinion as an individual, you get said, okay, cool, thank you so much, and it gets lost in translation. If you are not a part of the mass, then your voice isn't necessarily heard. And sometimes, even when you are in the mass, you voice a concern, but nothing happens because of it. Then you find organizations like here in South Africa, Dirk, you'll know about them as well. It's called Solidarity, and AfriForum. These two organizations just decided, listen, we need to stand up and we need to make change because it doesn't necessarily happen. And these guys just stood up. They started fighting the cases. They started standing up towards choices or decisions. And that started getting people into a position where we as individuals started making more choices to contribute towards politics, to contribute towards society, to actually want our opinions heard. How it works in South Africa, it's still a developing process. I mean, we started democracy in 94, and up until now, there really hasn't been any, I want to say, direct input from individuals where we can say what we feel. Either way, we are very vocal about it, but it doesn't mean anything gets done about it. And to an extent, sometimes the opposite happens. Unfortunately, if you know South African government, you'll know what's going on and what I'm pointing towards. But yeah, I mean, it's not as great as we would like it to be. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Not entirely, but I
Yeah,
think it brings to the point of a. I mean, you in South Africa you have a representative democracy, um,
yeah,
and I think that makes it a little bit complexer to get the individual's voice out, like
yeah,
because you have, um, I think I think that is maybe that's the whole problem with a representative democracy, um, which I think is sometimes complex. How do you want to like get 50 million people's political opinion about something, which
yeah,
makes it complex and difficult.
yeah,
And I think and I think that's what makes a constitution. I mean, it's also constitutional democracy, and I think that's why the constitution is such an important thing to live by and strive by. Which I think for our podcast today, looks like it's gonna take a political element to it. I haven't really touched on political topics on this podcast yet, so it's
Remember,
new.
Derek, we are both at our core. We are South African, and that is one of the rules we have as growing up:
That's
is you never
true.
talk about politics, religion, or your wife. So, yeah.
Or your wife. Oh yeah, okay. I thought it's about your mother-in-law, but maybe that's.
No, South Africans are very vocal about them. Anyway, so
Um,
yeah,
so yeah, I mean, I just thought about that when we started. It's like, yeah, we don't really like that's something you at the dinner table. You don't talk politics and you don't talk religion because that divides us. Like, yeah, we come from a country that's divided by just
yeah,
just by the get go. Like we are divided.
yeah.
I speak of us. I haven't lived there in 5 years, so don't know if I can still speak of us. I like to though, but yeah, it's one of those things. So coming back to like, I think that's what makes the political system very very complex. That you have this representative democracy, and you obviously have racial tensions.
Yeah.
That is still really broad. Still there present. Sorry, not broad, present.
Mm.
My English is fantastic today.
Yeah.
So you have these problems. Now you have church. You have your religious element to it. Church, just for a history lesson, church played a role in the separation of white and black and coloreds and so on. Where does the church stand on this? I mean, we are like to understand the South African context. I think for those of you who don't come from South Africa, and I think this is important to know is that in the development of South Africa, it's been always a question. Race has always been a question. It is
Yeah.
something that's just always been present, and I don't think it's something that's just gonna go away overnight.
Yeah.
And what role would the church actually play in helping people navigating the difficulties of it? I mean, what's right, what's wrong? How
So
what would you say to someone listening saying, okay, I live in Pretoria. I want to be a good Christian, whatever that means in a
yeah.
South African context, and I do not want to get race baited. I
Yeah.
do not want to sit there and blame the government based on race or
Mm.
go to this political party because they represent a race better. What would you say to someone in that line of thinking?
Yeah. So I think getting back to the first question actually on being reflective as a Christian, I think there is an importance in the church contributing towards this in the sense of, okay, but what's if we want to follow a party, a political party, if we want to vote for a political party, doesn't matter which party it is, it's about their intention, it's about their values, it's about blah, 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 because they're representing us as individuals, as you rightly said.
So to a certain
So,
extent, they also represent your values, right? Like
exactly,
what you stand
yes,
for as a person. Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
So the whole crux of Christianity, the whole crux of
Good word.
Christianity
Good word.
is is to be focused on building values, is living kingdom values, is living Christian values, is living rather Jesus's values, what he lived on earth and what he's teaching us through his scripture, through his word, through his choosing of us as the church to portray these values. That is what that is actually the whole basis of Christianity. It's a lifestyle. That's what it's about. It's a relationship. So, and if we look at it in that sense as well, a political party portrays a lot of the same characteristics because they are trying to get you into a value system, into a lifestyle system, into all of that. So the reason why I'm mentioning this is I think the responsibility of the church is to get the individual not to just focus on the masses, not just to focus on the ranking of said political party, but it is to focus the individual on becoming the closest to who Jesus is by establishing a relationship with Jesus and seeing where values line up, which is, and this is where it gets tricky because you need to find your values. You need to find your party, which represents you as an individual with your values, but also which will be good towards the country.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes it can be very difficult. So I think the church's responsibility is to do that, is to equip and prepare individuals through just the message of who Jesus is by establishing a values, a lifestyle, a kingdom focus. So I think in a broad sense, that is more the church's responsibility.
Yeah, that makes full sense. Like it's really makes sense how that works, and I think the church's responsibility is quite broad. I mean, we do have a big mandate in a sense to really teach and equip people, and especially in a society so divided as South Africa. I think I think the church has still a very, very important role to play, because it's still a very religious country.
Yeah,
people still go to church. They're not forced to go to church, or they actually go out of their own volition. They go to church, which is quite a blessing from a church's point of view. And I just sometimes think, hence the conversation today being reflective not just of your political opinion but also of your values. And I think it's so difficult to find a political party that really represents Jesus's idea of what his kingdom looks like, because in the end we all try to build our own kingdom first, right? I guess that is the first thing, is that whole denial of self. And that's a difficult part, and I guess that is what makes it an ever turning wheel, I guess, is really figuring out how to deal with life, how to deal with all these complexities. But I really like what you said, is viewing it through the lens of Jesus. So now, for someone listening that is asking, okay, that's great. That's great that you come up with such religious words, and it sounds great building God's kingdom, and it sounds fantastic, and just it sounds like a utopia. Are we all going to sing Kumbaya? Those. As a skeptic, sometimes when I hear religious, I'm not going to say it's jargon, because I really do believe in these things, but what does it mean viewing the world through the lens of Jesus? When I look at my fellow human being and go, man, this is not good. This is not good.
That is always the difficult question to answer, because so the reality of this is, if we, as you said, we use the words, we use the definitions of all of this, and we get to a point where we say, okay, so we need to establish his kingdom. For us, it's part of our vocabulary. It's what we know. It's who we are. All of that. However, if you were to explain it to someone, that is to say, okay, but if you were to establish his kingdom, it's first of all to ask, okay, but do you know who he is? If you look at, for example, look at yes, this is probably the worst comparison ever, but take a look at Hitler. Okay. If you take a look at Hitler, and he established the Reich back then, and you take a look at what he did and the way that he ran those years and the way that he established dominance and all of that in those years, kind of his own little kingdom, his reign, if you can put it that way. His own identity was put into that part, into that reign. His own identity, who he was as an individual, and people knew him for who he was. People knew what he stood for. People knew what he hated. People knew who he was because he made it vocal. Now, for us as Christians, we don't necessarily go down that path of saying, listen, we are going to become like a Jesus Hitler, kind of to an extent. But what we're saying is, do we actually portray Jesus correctly in the world out there? You know, do we actually show him? And I think this goes back to your question of saying, are you being a reflective Christian? Which means building God's kingdom on earth means you are currently showing God to a world out there, which is either from your perspective or it is from the Bible's perspective. And what I mean with that is, if we were to build God's kingdom, how do we do that? It's by living out the values. Once again, his values, not building your kingdom, as you rightly said earlier, on what you want and where you want to go and what you need to see, what matters. It's not about your opinion. It's about what God's opinion is over you and over this world, and then living that out. And living that out is to find like-minded people. It's to find people that care. And the whole basis of God's teachings and the whole basis of Jesus's teachings was to say, listen, if it comes to a point where we need to just say, listen, we love each other and truly live from that, then we would have achieved what we got. Then we would have achieved what we needed to achieve. Yeah, I think when it comes to that, it's
it's a very interesting. I mean, still a little bit chewing on the whole. I think you touch on a good point. With when you look at a guy like Hitler or even political figures that came after him. I mean, it seems that we as human beings, we look for a political messiah.
Yeah.
Someone that, I mean, if you go back to the Bible, if you look at Jesus when he got onto the scene, I mean, he came onto the scene, he just like, whoa, people were like, okay, are you going to be our political messiah? Are you going to be the one that sets us free from this oppressing Roman rule? And he obviously came out with a different mindset, different ball game, if you will. And he's like, no, I came to save humanity. I came for something much bigger than just this speck of earth. And I sometimes think we get lost in that. We get so lost in our own identity politics. Now every culture, I believe, has an identity politics. Like we believe we are the best for some reason, no matter who we are, no matter how much we want to lie to ourselves. We think that to the core, and I guess that's where we also fall into the trap of getting race baited, because it's easy then to race bait you.
It's an easy way out.
But living these kingdom values, and I think that's where the Sermon on the Mount is so. Sometimes I look at that and I think, okay, this is the new constitution of God's kingdom, right? It comes out professor from New Testament out, and I think this is the new constitution. But it's so sometimes just it's a big ask, and that's why I think your point of getting to know Jesus, not getting to know the Jesus your pastor preaches about, but getting to know the biblical Jesus, the Jesus that roamed earth, that died on the cross, that's resurrected. Getting to know that Jesus is so important.
If we go back to the political side, sorry, I just want to interject this, because if we go to a political side, we will research that leader to the core. However, when it comes to Jesus, we don't want to research him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is also where a big sense of our responsibility comes in, is to say that if we want to establish his kingdom, do we truly know him? And are we actually doing research on him? So
I do think you touch on it. It's a great point you make in the end. It's I think the thing is, as soon as we step into that realm of, hey, I want to follow Jesus, he asks not just for your opinion. He's like, it's okay. He asks for your life, and I think that is the thing that makes it so difficult. I mean, there's what was it, 70 of his disciples just stood up and walked away and said, we're not doing this. It's okay. It's just for other people. It's for more radical people. It's not for us. So I do think it's the moment you start researching Jesus, the moment you start wanting a relationship with him, it's gonna cost you something. Now for you and I don't know about you, I can't speak for you, but for me, it's been one of the best journeys of my life. And but what do you say to the skeptic that says, well, this guy asks too much? Like, I do wanna live out his kingdom. I do wanna do all of that, but it just sounds like it's just too much.
So the pastor side of me wants to say, okay, well, that's fine for now. You know, that's okay, because the moment that you force someone into something or you put judgments on someone, then they are going to rebel against that and just leave it entirely.
Yeah.
However, I actually spoke to someone yesterday who's going through a very tough time, and I told him as well, it's fine to feel the pain right now. It's fine to stand back for a moment. It's fine to be that right now, but don't give up on the whole concept of this. Don't give up on your own life. And I think that's applicable here as well to the skeptic saying this is just too much. If you feel that it's too much for now, that's fine. You know, then rather just get to know Jesus more right now. Ask your questions, get your stuff heard, you know, before you want to go and establish his kingdom. And I think just for me, it's a thing we tend to give up too quickly because something feels too difficult. And I think it's personal conviction to an extent. So ask your questions, you know, get it out there, get the information, build your relationship, and see what happens from there. So
Yeah, no, I like it, and I think this is a great place to leave it. This conversation. Well, we're not going to leave it. We always say, please continue the conversation. And yeah, I just think it's important. Go out there, try to change your community, be part of your community. Don't get race baited. I think that's my message for today. Is just don't be reflective about what's happening in the situation. Think about the risk. I mean, that's what the word means, is think about what you are doing and think about the situation you are in before you comment or just lay loose with your words, because words have a thing of really hurting and really
that's true,
destroying things rather than building it up. So think about that. And I just think keep the conversation going. Just get in there, still do your thing in your community. And until next time then.
Cool.
So Arnold, where can they follow us?
Guys, remember that we are all over social media. We are on Instagram, and then also on TikTok. But if you are on TikTok and not just scrolling, go give us a follow there. However, also you can find our podcast everywhere else that podcasts are available. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere else, and then also on YouTube. And guys, send us a message, send us anything you'd like us to chat about or to talk about. And until next time.
Keep the conversation going. Cheers, guys.
Bye.